I cling to his reports. Hoping for something positive. He is one of the best, and he is as locked in on what's going on in the lockup between baseball and its Players Association. He is a senior MLB writer for ESPN and one of the best reporters on the market. Our friend Jeff Passan back here on the Rich Eisen Show. Jeffrey, how are you today?
Richard, I am well. Yourself?
I'm hanging in there. Where do things stand right now? Middle of the day. The day after baseball players said that the commissioner should tell them where and when, and all he said is, I'm not confident anymore. Jeff?
Yeah, it was, a few weeks ago, Rich, an executive who's been around for a while, I'm paraphrasing him here, said to me, in order for this thing to live, it needs to die first. And I think yesterday when Rob Manfred did such a stark about-face from where he was 5 days earlier when he said unequivocally, we're playing, it's 100%, and then saying, I'm not confident we're going to play. I think that was baseball dying momentarily. And it is, from everything I hear, from everything I see, from everything I think, from the perspective of just pure straight-up logic, it has to happen. There has to be a season at this point because the alternative of no season is so catastrophic to the future of the sport that I just don't think the people who are in charge would take it there because we have this cancel culture, right? Part of cancel culture is not canceling yourself. And baseball would be inflicting cancellation on itself by having no season.
Okay. I got a few places I can go after that. Why does baseball explain to me that concept of why baseball had to die first to live? Why in the world would that be a rational thought process for somebody to tell you when this pandemic calls for nothing but trying to live for the fans? What is the world?
I think that is a totally reasonable question, and I think there's actually a very good answer to it.
Okay.
The conversation we were having was about the breaking of norms. It was about the leaking of letters. It was about Rob Manfred acting in very un-Rob Manfred-like ways. And his thought was, this thing is so screwed up right now, we need to get back to some sort of homeostasis. We need to get back to a place where everybody is so beaten down by this that you just hit the reset button. And that's what happened yesterday. I think the reset button got hit. I think the sides have to now. And this is I don't know that it needed to come to a point where one side or the other, hit failblog.org. But that was Major League Baseball yesterday. It was a big bag of fail. And I think after that happened, the owners need to look at the state of the game where they are ultimately the shepherds because they are the ones who own these franchises for 10, 20, 30, 50 years at a time. And players, on average, their career is about 3.5 or 4 years. And as much as the Players Association, as much as the players are the lifeblood of any sport, I also think that the amount of influence that they have is finite, and it depends upon the trajectory of their careers. And the idea that over the course of these relatively short careers, they can shape the future of baseball inexorably is just a false premise. It then falls on the owners to be those people who are putting it in the right direction.
Well, why aren't they? Who's the hardliner that's got Manfred's ear? Unless Manfred's the hardliner here, telling the owners, "I got this. I'm a labor lawyer." Who give me names. Who are the ones that are saying, "Let's not play"?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Rob Manfred has, for 25 years now, actually been extremely good at his job for the purposes of what Major League Baseball owners want. And they wanted to take back power after the Major League Baseball Players Association held it for damn near 30 years. And I think he's done a good job of that. But there comes a point at which, Rich, the pendulum just swings too far in the opposite direction. And I think that is what has happened here. You've had players over the last decade and a half, 2 decades, not get complacent, not get comfortable, but get to the point where these little tiny things that they gave up started to add up. And you've seen dealings, not legally in bad faith, not by the letter of the law, but certainly by the spirit of it by Major League Baseball. You've seen the emergence of sabermetrics more or less crush the free agent market for players who are 30 years and older. And you've seen service time manipulation. In the case of Chris Bryant, who's a day short of a year of free agency earlier than he would have otherwise. And you see these things that in a vacuum, individually, player by player, are small, but collectively have shifted the tide of the sport so much in favor of the owners that the players are sitting there saying, all we got to do is find an idea, stick with it, show unanimity, and there is great strength in that. And I think they have actually proven that over the last 2 months by sticking with the idea that we want to get paid our salary. We want to get the full prorated share. We're not going to take pay cuts. You do not privatize gains and socialize losses, and we're not going to let you do that. And it put them in a position where yesterday Rob Manfred put his foot in his mouth. And really, I think, calcified in the public this notion that when players are saying, you tell us when, you tell us where, a very simple and powerful message, and then the commissioner is saying, well, we're actually not going to implement the season that we had been considering doing, and instead we may just shut this whole thing down. I mean, the optics of that, as Manfred himself said yesterday, are disastrous. And this was the disaster falling on Major League Baseball in one fell swoop.
Jeff Passan here on the Rich Eisen Show. So then what led Manfred to have that reversal? Why did he, if he's been saying this whole time and this negotiation hammer that I can institute, that we're going to play baseball, I can institute something, why did he change the track? Who told him to change the track? What circumstances changed to make him change that approach? Jeff, is it a grievance? Is it what's happening?
Yeah, I think their bluff got called. I think that I look at it mathematically, Rich. Let's say that the players. So here's the. I want to take a step back here just to get the whole picture. Rob Manfred, per the March 26th agreement between the parties, can set the schedule for the season. At the beginning of the month, we were told, Carl Ravitch and myself, about the league's willingness or desire to set a shorter schedule, which was in line with the idea that there are a number of powerful owners out there who want to play as few games as possible because MLB says that it's going to lose money when it plays games. So this guillotine of a 48 or 50 game schedule hung over baseball to the point where the MLBPA just got tired of the league repackaging a very similar offer 3 different times and saying, hey, we're improving, when in reality it wasn't getting anywhere close to the full prorated share that they wanted. So the MLBPA said, you know what, go ahead, set the season. We'll come and play. Just tell us when, just tell us where. Yeah. And when that happened, Rob Manfred said, well, if I set the season at a short schedule, then the duty that I have to play the fullest amount of games possible in a schedule as per that March 26th agreement is going to look extremely fishy because our last offer to the players was for 72 games. And if over the matter of, 3 days you go from 72 to 48, it's like, are you really trying to play the fullest game possible? Now, it's true, Rich, that there is a caveat to this play the fullest schedule possible, and that caveat includes health and safety concerns. That caveat includes economic feasibility. But in the end, if it was a short season, the MLBPA was prepared to file a grievance that the league did not uphold its duty to play the fullest season possible. And if you look at that grievance, it would probably be for somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion. And if you look at it from baseball's perspective, even if the union has only a 25% chance of winning that grievance, you still have to value that grievance at $250 million, right? That's just the way that the math works. And the idea of having that $250 million liability right there, let alone the possibility of the $1 billion on top of that, is just too much, I think, for the owners to stomach at this point. And when they got their bluff called, the reaction from the league was to be, okay, well, you guys shut down conversations about reaching a negotiated agreement on a full season. Why should we talk with you guys? Why should we do anything if you're not willing to talk? The problem is that ran into the brick wall of we'll play anywhere, anytime. And in the power of that very simple message from the players, I think, boxed MLB in, and Rob Manfred inside of that box said some things that were just optically miserable.
Oh, boy. Jeff Passan of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. By the way, Optically Miserable was a great band. It was a great band. Optically Miserable was I think it was acoustic. All righty then. So then, what's the let's
Lyle Lovett's stage
Yes,
name.
Optically Miserable. Everybody, put your hands together. So what's how much money difference is there between baseball's last offer on how much grand total dollars that they were going to give to the players on a pro rata basis and what the players want? What's the difference? Is it $400 million bucks, $500 million bucks? Where are we here? I mean, how for you share it over 30 teams and just get this damn thing done and move on and say, you know what? Here's what's happened. We understand. After all this time, we understand, and then just eat it. Yep. Eat the PR of it, and then just soak in the ratings. What about that?
So, Rich, we can look at this two different ways. The first way is that MLB's last offer maxed out at about $1.5 billion in cash to players. If you take that over a prorated basis, that's about 60 full games. The MLBPA's last offer was for 89 full games at pro rata, which is about $2.25 billion. So we're talking a $750 million gap just in cash out.
Right.
But I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think the right way to look at it is if MLB is claiming, and this I have no way of verifying this, the MLBPA does not believe it's true, but MLB is claiming that it's going to lose $640,000 per game played. If you take $640,000 times the 29 different games of difference between the 89 that the PA wants and the 60 that MLB is willing to play, times 15 games a day, the grand total is $278,400,000. That's less than $10 million a team right there. And that is a bridgeable gap, and one of the reasons that I have confidence that when it's all said and done, this thing's probably going to end up in the 65 to 75 game range, players getting paid their full prorated share, expanded playoffs, and an actual season that is far more representative than a 48 or 50 game season would have been.
What's the players' role in all this, Jeff, in terms of blame? Because we're hearing a lot from the players calling out Manfred. You heard also Euclid today. Give again, because you pointed out, I pointed out too. The players have a much more relatable argument. Tell us when and where. Also, honest days pay for an honest day's work. It may be much more well compensated than anybody else's work, but everybody can understand. You work, you get paid. That's it. And it's a much more understandable. And then in light of Rob Manfred also saying earlier this year, referring to the Commissioner's Trophy, a trophy in his name is a piece of metal. And I understand that could be taken in various contexts, but he did say those words, that he comes across as COVID pointing out that he's a substandard guardian of the game. This whole thing about COVID, COVID shows you place aside labor lawyer. You should be the guardian here. Let's be the guardian here. But what are the players' role in bringing us to this brink?
Let's put it this way. I think when it's all said and done, the moral right here is with the players. But I also wish that the players from the start would have gone to MLB and said, we are in the middle of a pandemic right now. We had no idea that on top of that there was going to be, the social unrest that there's been, and just this country feeling like it's in an absolutely terrible place. But pandemic alone, let's just get baseball back on the field. People need it. People want it. Let's find a common place. The problem is that common place was just never going to happen until it all fell apart, because you see the offers that MLB has put out there. I mean, first one, 30% pay cut of pro rata. Second one, 25%. Third one, 20%. And with the number of games going down, Rich, they turn out to be very similar offers. And it's like, okay, are you really moving toward this place to get back on the field? Is that really what you're trying to do? Now, the first offer from the Players Association for 114 games and a schedule that's stretching into potentially December, that was a little outlandish. But the last one for 89 games, it was probably a little too late for that, but it wasn't entirely unreasonable. The problem is they have just wasted so much time, and where they are now, Rich, is where they should have been 2 months ago.
No doubt.
We should have baseball. Like, literally right now, we should have baseball.
No doubt.
That is not a hot take. That is stone cold fact that they screwed up badly, and they need to dig themselves out of their own screw ups and get this thing done as soon as humanly possible to rescue the damage that they have done to their sport.
So now, Jeff, and the last thing for you, the glass half full, optimistic person in me sees in the future. I see in the future. I follow you at Jeff Passan. I read your stuff on ESPN.com. There's a link. It's Jeff Passan's deep dive on how both sides came together and made the season happen after all, and baseball is back. What date do I read about? And then who's that person in your deep dive where you said that person called Manfred, that person called Tony Clark of the Players Association and got everybody together? Who is that person? And what date does it happen, Jeff Passan?
I think there are two different tracks this can go down. I think if everybody recognizes the horror show that baseball unleashed on its fan base yesterday, that they get something done in the next 72 hours. But that's a really optimistic perspective.
Okay.
Somebody who's involved in the negotiation last night said, I think this gets done in 10 days. And I think the way that looks is the Players Association, after the letter that they received last night from Dan Halem, the deputy commissioner, comes back and says, okay, you know what, if you want to have a negotiated settlement, let's do it at, say, 82 or 84 games. And MLB will come back and say, no, we're going to do it at 65 games. And then it's just a little bit more back and forth until they get to that happy medium. They should just go there right now. But I think the players also recognize they've got hands. They do. And you don't want to overplay it. Right. But when you have hand, you don't want to fritter it away either. So because there is an advantage in this situation right now, the PA right now does not want to be the team with a 1-goal advantage in a soccer game that's pressing ahead late and gives up a break and someone scores a breakaway tying goal. Like, you don't want to be the team that does that. So they need to be judicious, and I think the judiciousness is what's going to make this thing last a little bit longer than it probably should.
So, but they're talking right now, or does somebody need to get these two people together?
No. I think after yesterday they're going to talk. I think MLB. If you look at what Rob Manfred said yesterday, he made mention of paying the players full pro rata. It was the first time he had publicly acknowledged even that possibility. And he said so in the context, perhaps, of doing so over a shortened season, but cat's out of the bag, man. At this point, the players are not taking less than full pro rata. And if you are loath to institute a season because the potential damages that could come from a grievance, then you just got to swallow hard and say, we're going to do this for the sport. And there are going to be plenty of places where we can get that money back. There's a collective bargaining agreement up in December 1st, 2021. There's next year when we have no idea if fans are going to be in the stands. So we're going to have these same conversations. I'm not even going to call this taking the L, but deal with it today. Understand that in a year of bad losses, they're probably going to be even worse, and get the damn sport back on the field. Like, that is your goal. That is not your goal. That is your imperative. That is your duty. You are the people who are running the sport. Run the damn sport.
Jeff, you're the man. Thanks. As always, we'll get you back on again soon. You're always so generous with your time and your information and your passion's the best. Really appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, Rich. Have a good one, pal.
You too. That's Jeff Passan, at Jeff Passan. Follow him on Twitter. A must. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.